Might just try and come out of the light a wee bit because it's bad over where I'm at the tractor. And the wind is not good tonight. So yeah, last time we finished off, I had got the turbo mounted on. Now that is probably going to have to come back off again because, well, you'll see in a bit why. And not for bad reasons. And I messed up a fitting, so I've now got that sorted. So I'm going to take a walk through here on exactly what you need for the oil lines, if you want to do it my way, or you can do it your own way. It doesn't really matter. This is the way I've chose to do it. So we'll take a look at that here now. As per usual, this is very, very difficult to do one-handed. But so the first thing we want really to do when we're talking about the oil lines is size them as to where they need to go. Now, as we've seen, I plan on taking mine out, and I've already kind of half mocked up here, but I'll be stripping it all off to show you. The first thing I did was I had taken mine out of the oil pressure switch port, which is here. Now at the minute I have my T-piece and all on that. This will all be coming off. I just had it on to make sure it was all correct. So what I did was, look, I have vacuum line about from working on the cars and stuff, and for me it was cheaper to use a bit of vacuum line, God that one's bad, than go and use like some actual proper hydraulic hose and then get it wrong. But basically what I want to do with my shadow, I'll maybe just zoom in here. I have these lines here, and I basically wanted to take my oil feed line along with them up along the top of the engine and into here, into the top feed point of my turbo. So what I did was I simply measured from there to the top end using a bit of hose. I done the same, there's a few other things here, for going from the drain down to my bung, which I'll explain in a minute the plan for that as well. But that is how I sized up the oil lines. For all it takes, for all it costs, use string, use whatever. I used this because it was a bit more solid and it works well. So this is your oil pressure switch, which basically tells you if you've got good oil pressure. The wire to mine is broke. I'm going to put a new one in, but basically this was mounted in here. And what I've done is I have replaced that with an M12 T, which is female on all sides. So what I've done is I've got an M12 male to male nipple, so I can thread this T on. And the reason I've got a female nipple is simply this boil here threads up in here, and I've got a dirty washer in the end of them too. If the camera will zoom in and actually let me show that properly. Come on camera, there we go. So if I thread that in, he'll thread in at the bottom. That means I can take my actual oil line out from here and up through. So I'm going to show that now. So this side, this is my oil line, okay? And it is done with 1/4 inch barb fitting on this side and the other side. So it's a 1/4 inch diameter hydraulic line with an M12 fitting on this end, which threads in here. Now up at the top, at the turbo here, I have got what's called an AN4 fitting. Don't know if you can see that until I move out the light here. It's an AN4 fitting, okay? -4 is what it's known. However, if you go to a hydraulic shop, they might not necessarily know what that is, but what works with it, if I turn this around, is a 7/16 JIC fitting, and that will go over your AN4. So that is what you need. Now, if I'd have been smart, I would have just taken the fitting to a hydraulic place, but I forgot to take the fitting itself. So I had to do a bit of digging online. However, this does fit. I've got this done on a 90, so it threads in easier. Yeah, and as I say, 1/4 inch hydraulic line, inner diameter. So the reason I made this line here particularly long is I didn't want it to get basically scorched by an exhaust manifold. Like at the end of the day, this is full of oil and this is hot. So I wanted to be able to basically like cable tie it to these water lines here. I'm assuming they're water anyway, otherwise I'm going to sound very, very stupid. And I can run it up in here, then up into the turbo. I'm not going to tighten this for now because, as I've already said, I'm going to take the turbo off. But I'll explain very briefly the oil size, the oil return size as well. Times are bad when you're using the light of the phone, but here we are. So for my oil return, I'm taking it into, this used to be like an oil OK level, and realistically I wouldn't trust that anyway because you've a dipstick here and you should be using that instead. So first thing I'll say is this This boy here did not come out easy. So I tried to take it off with a spanner, typically the way you normally would, and the whole thing just snapped. So I ended up having to go in with a chisel to get it off. Now, interestingly, these are a weird metric thread that is M32 by 1.5, and I have never heard of that before in my life. But I've got quite a neat solution that I think is going to work for this. So simply what I've done is, if we move up here, I have got this, which is an M32 by 1.5 bung. And my idea is to drill a hole through this and basically get Andy to weld on a barb fitting, which will get an oil line to go over. And on the flip side, I've got a barb fitting which goes on the end of my turbo here. I do worry about this being a wee bit short, but we'll see how that goes. So this basically threads on to here, to my end fitting, and the oil line simply goes down from here, where it goes into another fitting, down at the block. So I'm not going to put all this in yet, there's no point until it's all cleaned up, but what I will do for test running purposes to get the tractor in the trailer is probably just run the line straight into here. So I'll just take this out and run a line straight in until it's fully welded. Now, my hose line is a bit too long, but I'm going to let Andre worry about that when he's fabbing it up. So basically it comes out of here at a 45-degree angle. The reason I've done that is to try and pull it away from the manifold so I don't have to worry about heat. I probably will wrap this line with gold tape, to be honest. Maybe that's overkill, but that's what we do with the cars. And then I have this into a barb fitting down here, which I'll just get welded on to the bung, and obviously a hole drilled through it. And that is going to be my return line. So, but for now, I'll probably just run this line directly into that hole, just to see how the oil is. But now I'm going to take the turbo off, because I want to get the manifold on, take the turbo off, because the next thing I'm going to do is check we actually have oil coming out that line, because from the line that feeds the turbo, because the last thing we want is for me to whack this turbo on and not get oil up through that and completely destroy a fully rebuilt turbo. So that's the next thing we're going to do. So we took the turbo off, and I've relied on this video twice now, but the camera won't record. So no doubt now the tractor isn't started. And I have Connor with me as well. Connor's in the background here. We've managed to start the tractor. It was loud, but we've got oil here. We've got oil coming out of here, so that means I've got oil going to my turbo, which is good. That's exactly what we want. So manifold on, tractor started, although loud as which we don't have now in video because, you know, camera's no good. So yeah, with oil we can bolt everything up and get her on the trailer and get her to Andy's. So we have the turbo on, oil line is now connected, as you can see up here. I have this drain on, it's just running into this hole here for now. The fittings are all in a box, which I need to throw in the tractor. So I suppose we get this out of the shed and onto the trailer. We've her loaded in the trailer here now, so just need to strap her up and get her over the road to Andy Hamill's. I've just realised I've left my sunroof on. I'm at training. So the last video you will have seen is me behind Connor as he takes my tractor to Andy Hamill. Now, after that, things kind of went a bit mental, because after Andy got the tractor, I went to site to work away. I come home, lifted the tractor, took it straight to the dyno, and then went and done my first tractor pull. And I didn't do any recording of anything after that. And the reason for that was, well, mainly down to the fact that maybe this didn't work. Maybe something could have went wrong with the tractor, and touch wood, nothing has yet, and hopefully nothing will. So there's no point in me putting a video together, explaining how to do everything, and then it not working. It renders the whole thing useless. So what I've done is I've actually worked with the tractor. As you can see at the minute, if I step to the side, there's currently a dump trailer on behind. I've been drawing stones. And I've been putting the tractor to work in general. As I say, I've done a tractor pull with it. It's done the dyno, so I know it's running well. But in order to go and explain the past, we have to go to the future. The future is where we are now. So the next clip you're going to see is the day I lifted the tractor from Andy Hamill's at ADH Engineering. Nice, lovely stainless steel pipework, looked really well. Had to put the video in just to show how good it looked. Now, obviously a month and a half, 2 months on, the pipework has aged a little bit, it's just going to look like that with use. But now I'm going to talk through the next steps of the pipework and how it was all put together. So massive thank you to Andy Hamill of ADH Engineering. If you're local-ish to me, in the sort of Ballymena, Antrim, Marfelt kind of area, Andy's your man for stainless pipework. He is top class, and it wasn't a case of he told me what he was doing. I asked for what I wanted, and Andy delivered. Oh, me and my good clothes too. So you can see there's been a little bit of heat come into the system since, but this is all piped up here now, so I'm going to try and explain everything the best I can, although it is a bit hidden, so I don't really want to have to take this off. But basically, so as you can see, here's the oil feed up to the turbo, into here, the oil feed out. And as I got Andy, he made me a connection basically in the oil OK level port. So if you remember, I took that out, and actually what I did whenever I was just simply driving the tractor onto the trailer to bring it to Andy's, I just simply ran this hose directly into that opening. But if you remember, I bought a special bung. We've since drilled through that, and Andy has welded on a barb fitting, a 5/8 barb, which coincides with this. And that's where I run my oil into. As you can see, the air comes out of the turbo and goes in through this pipe and into the other side. I'll get a better video of that when I'm rounding the other side. And we've simply just done a stainless 90 out and up into the exhaust. Now, there's a couple of questions surrounding this, because some people think the Fiat originally, if you look, has a tilt on the exhaust. I just wanted it straight. Personally, I think it looks better, so that's what I did. So as you can see, we've got the air inlet pipe here as well, and it's going around to the original filter box, which, yeah, standard. So happy with that. That's this bad boy here. So we'll go around to the other side and I'll show you a couple of better videos of how it looks from that side. One other point to note though, before I do that, is that the oil filler on the Fiat is here. If you can see where my finger's tapping. Yeah, so you can see this sort of where my finger's hitting here. That is where you fill the oil. So in order for me to put in oil to this tractor going forward, I'm going to have to disconnect from here, and there's a point over here which I'll also have to disconnect, but I'll talk about that now when I go around to it. So we opted for a very simple approach, just using silicone hose, simply straight out of the turbo and into the inlet here. That is a 2" to 2 3/4, if I believe, because it's 70mm inlet actually at the inlet manifold, and coming out of the turbo it's 2". So we've just simply got a 90 silicone hose that does that, which is a great job. Great job. Made it a lot easier for Andy and a lot easier in the wallet too. This joint here is very, very important. Very, very important. And the reason for that being, as I've already discussed, you can see the oil cap over here. If I also have your power steering fluid here, if I wanted to be able to do any maintenance to this tractor, all I would simply have to do is undo the silicone hose at the other side. There's enough room here that I can pull this entire pipe back and simply just pull the pipe out here, and I can work at everything and quite easily fit it all back together again. And Andy has also teed this in to the original breather, and I've just tripped over the side panel. So yeah, look, in terms of the stainless pipework, I am very, very happy with this. Now, I originally had talked about putting a front mount intercooler in this thing. Someone removed the air conrad, and as you can see, my battery tray is not good in there, so that's a story for another day. But I have room there for an intercooler, and it is something I would consider at a later stage. So once you have your entire turbo kit all fitted, the next thing to do would be to go to the dyno and get it tested. Now, one thing, and I just didn't have the time, it's something I would love to have done, but just didn't get a chance to do it, was actually get this tractor dynoed before it got the turbo on it. And that sounds entirely like it should be something that nearly sounds like, well, obviously you would do that, but with me working away a lot and the time frame I was on in order to get this tractor actually ready for the tractor pull, I didn't have free time to go and take it to the dyno. But one thing we do know is that this tractor was very sharp for a standard tractor. All 110 horses were definitely there, possibly more, like maybe 115. But after you fit the turbo, the next thing you'll want to do is take it straight to the dyno. That would be my recommendation. And then once you're there and you find out what power you're at, you'll want to maybe give it a little bit more power. So I'll show you how to do that now. Well, a diesel engine, basically, your throttle is wide open, which basically means that at all times, you're getting full air. It's not like a car, or petrol, sorry, should I say, where you have this flap, called your throttle body, that dictates how much air is coming into your engine. You don't have that. It is always wide open, and therefore, the more fuel you add, the more power you get. Now, within reason. After that, you have to start looking at things called EGTs, and that's probably not something I'm going to go into in this video, in this particular one, maybe in the next video, but we'll talk about the injector pump for now. But there's one thing I have to say, and I learned this, so please listen carefully to what I'm saying. Do not screw your tractor too much in one go, especially if you do not know the health of your injector pump. I didn't know the health of mine. Before I took mine to the dyno, I gave it a half turn in the yard, and it was fine. It was grand. When I took it to the dyno, I done my first run and said, okay, that's fine. We give it another half turn on the dyno, and the tractor started and revved straight to the moon. And naturally, I myself. And the reason for this being is my injector pump just simply isn't working as well as it should. And once you start adding more diesel, it simply just doesn't know how to restrict the diesel anymore, and it just basically gave my tractor all the diesel. So what happened in the end was we actually had to take it straight back more or less to where it was. And one other thing to learn is whenever you start the tractor and it revs to the moon, turn it off. Now, what I was finding as well is even whenever the tractor started and idled correctly, as it should, what it then started to do was if I give it any throttle at all, it would hold the revs and wouldn't come down. And that's bad because that means you have absolutely no engine braking, and that is also dangerous. So please just listen to what I am saying. If you're going to screw it, A, either take it to someone who knows what they're doing, or B, if you are going to do it yourself, do it easily. Do it a quarter turn at a time. Do not make the same mistake as me. But if you are willing to listen to my words of wisdom and you do decide to screw the injector pump on your tractor, now, apparently, Fiats have two different types, and this, I believe, is a Bosch pump. So, to add more diesel to this, you need two things. You need a 13mm spanner, and you need a flathead screwdriver. So basically what you have is you have a threaded bar with an indent here for a screwdriver, and that sits in there. Now I'm using a very stubby one, but it's fine. So what you will do is this nut here, you slacken that, slacken it back, mark or make sure you know exactly the original starting point of where your threaded bar, your screw is. And in this tractor, to add more diesel, you turn the screw clockwise. You screw in. Now people talk about the phrase, oh, it's screwed out. Well, in this case, you actually screw in. And as I say, know where you're starting off and add a quarter turn at a time. And if you do that, you shouldn't have any problems with this thing revving the head of itself. So one thing you'll notice about the Fiat once you've actually stuck the turbo to it is it kind of loses the signature tone that all Fiats kind of have. Well, even the 110s and the 190s have. It sounds a lot different, at least with my turbo it does anyway. It sounds a lot throatier. But it still sounds pretty good, I have to say. You know, I don't regret my decision. Well, I'm leaving the tractor running because I'm going to put it back into the shed here now anyway, but what I did last week was I actually, after coming home with a load of stones, I took a walk around the tractor, explaining kind of the difference in the power, how I felt. I have to say I was very, very impressed, so I'm going to cut to that video now. First run with an actual load on. I know it's not the biggest load in the world. There's 10 tonne in that trailer plus whatever the weight is. She's got the back wheel down a wee bit. You would know the loads on behind her. Like, let's be honest, they're not a heavy tractor. That's a good enough load for what it is. Probably all in, I'd say that trailer's probably 3.5 tonne. I'd say you're pulling 14 tonne there, or every bit of it. So it's probably as tight as that tractor's ever going to get it, actually. Now, you could go for a bit more of a load, but you probably wouldn't. So coming up, the hills, hey, takes it like an absolute champ. 5th gear, she is not dropping below 2000 RPM. She is holding the power to 2000 RPM. And I have to say, I'm very impressed. For if that was her without the turbo, she would be struggling. I'd have been changing into 4th gear, 100%. So, from that respect, I have to say, very, very impressed with the turbo. Now, different way of driving her. You'd have to get on the driving her right so you don't end up destroying a clutch. I was coming out of Clary there and coming up the hill and maybe went for 2nd gear a wee bit too early, but all in all, I'm very, very happy with that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and that's kind of the most of the technical work behind the whole turbocharging process kind of discussed, really. In part 4, we're going to look at the dyno, and we're going to look at my first tractor pull. And sorry if you can't really hear me over the tractor because I'm just letting it warm. But yeah, that should all be very exciting too. So if you've been with me this far, thank you very much for watching. It's really, really appreciated. And until the next video, thank you very much.